Imagine you walk into a casino.
Okay.
And you place a bet. And not just like a casual bet, but I mean a staggering, logic-defying mountain of chips on a single number.
Right, totally all in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The wheel spins, the ball bounces, and you lose. Complete wipeout. And, most people would just quietly leave the table, take a long walk, maybe rethink their life choices entirely.
Or at least go to the buffet.
Right. But imagine you don't leave. Instead, you turn around, buy the entire casino, change the name on the building, and double down on a completely different game.
Which is wild. But I mean, that is essentially the corporate equivalent of what we are looking at today.
It really is.
It's a level of risk tolerance that fundamentally breaks how we think about traditional corporate management. Like when most public companies miss earnings by just a few percentage points, CEOs are sweating.
Oh, absolutely panicking.
Yeah. But here we are talking about vaporizing billions of dollars and immediately turning around and asking investors for billions more.
And that is exactly why we are here. Welcome to the deep dive. If you are listening right now, we know you're the learner. You're here because you want the shortcut to understanding the mechanics behind the madness.
You don't want the noise, right? You want the synthesis.
Exactly. Today, our mission is to shortcut your understanding of how tech's most persistent founder, Mark Zuckerberg, operates through just staggering failures and massive wins.
And we're examining a detailed analytical script today that maps out a very specific corporate narrative. So we are breaking down 3 major business failures and 2 existential wins.
And this timeline covers a lot of ground, right?
It does. It spans from the infamous Meta rebrand back in 2021 all the way to this massive, just all-consuming pivot to AI superintelligence in 2026.
Now, our sources today do get into the weeds of government regulatory actions, specifically the Federal Trade Commission's antitrust case.
Yeah.
And just be totally clear with you listening, we don't have a horse in the monopoly race.
Right? No side-taking here.
Yeah, we aren't here to cheer for big tech. And we aren't here to cheer for government regulators either.
Yeah.
Our only focus today is really unpacking the legal mechanics, the raw corporate strategy, and the financial outcomes exactly as they're presented in the original source material.
And I think that's a crucial baseline because the goal here isn't to put a moral judgment on the man or the regulatory environment,
Right.
The goal is to extract universally applicable mechanics about what it actually takes to bet big, to fail spectacularly, and to have the structural setup to just bet big again.
Okay, well, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the sheer velocity of this company's moves today, we have to look at the timeline. Zuckerberg co-founded Facebook back in 2004.
Over 2 decades ago.
Yeah. He stayed in the building running the exact same entity under different names for over 20 years. He navigated the transition from desktop to mobile, which, that was a brutal hurdle at the time.
People thought that would kill the company.
Exactly. Then came the 2021 rebrand to Meta, the multi-billion-dollar bet on virtual worlds. And now he is betting the house on AI.
But you cannot really understand the AI pivot without first examining the massive smoking crater left by the previous pivot.
Yeah, we have to look back.
Right. Before we look at where they are going, we really have to analyze the failure of where they just were.
And what a failure it was. We are talking about an $80 billion ghost town.
$80 billion. Just let that sink in.
It's unbelievable. In 2021, the company actually changed its name to reflect a sci-fi novel concept, the Metaverse. They poured staggering amounts of capital into virtual reality.
Right, through the Reality Labs division.
Yeah, the Reality Labs division, which housed this whole Metaverse bet, they just burned through cash at a rate that is, frankly, difficult to comprehend.
Yeah, one analysis in our sources puts the total cost north of $80 billion. And years later, it's AI, not VR headsets, that's actually moving the stock and the user numbers.
It's like throwing the most expensive party in human history, where literally nobody shows up.
Okay.
You can buy the best snacks, you can hire a great DJ, but you just can't force the market to walk through the door.
What's fascinating here is the complete disconnect between internal conviction and external market reality, because it wasn't just a matter of building a bad product.
Right.
It was a failure to ignite a network effect. Hardware and software have this brutal chicken and egg problem. If there is no software or digital ecosystem, consumers won't buy the heavy, expensive headset.
Obviously. Why would they?
Exactly. But if consumers don't buy the headset, developers have absolutely no financial incentive to spend thousands of hours building the software for it.
So he basically tried to brute force a network effect with pure cash. He tried to buy both the chicken and the egg at the exact same time, just hoping the market would magically show up.
Yeah, exactly. You can have thousands of the smartest engineers in the world. You can commit fully to a vision, and you can spend the GDP of a small country trying to build it. But ultimately, the market dictates adoption.
It's such a harsh lesson in the limits of willpower. You can't just command a new computing platform into existence if the utility isn't there for the end user.
So what stands out to you? I mean, if you're listening right now and thinking about your own projects, how often do you see that happen on a smaller scale?
Oh, all the time.
Right. We all have that tendency to confuse our own internal conviction for external validation. You push a project forward because you believe in it so strongly.
Even when you're ignoring every signal that the market or your boss or your clients just don't care.
Exactly. But a massive failure like Reality Labs doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your internal patience. And when you are impatient to prove your next big idea to Wall Street, you start cutting corners.
Which brings us directly to April 2025 and the unforced errors of the AI pivot. Because when you lose $80 billion on a ghost town, the pressure to make your next bet work is astronomical.
Oh, the desperation was palpable. So they launched the Llama 4 model, and it simply failed to win over developers.
But it wasn't just like a quiet flop either. It was a loud, messy controversy.
Yeah, it was.
The sources detail how the company was publicly rebuked by the LM Arena benchmark platform. The accusation was that Meta submitted an unreleased, specially tuned version of their model specifically to game the leaderboard.
Which is a huge deal in that community.
Right. But for those of us who aren't machine learning engineers, what exactly does that mean? Like, what is LM Arena and how do you game it?
Okay, think of it this way. In the AI world, figuring out which model is actually the smartest is incredibly difficult because AI can just memorize standard tests.
Right.
So LM Arena emerged as this gold standard, crowdsourced leaderboard where developers blindly test different AI models against each other using real-world conversational prompts.
Okay, so it's supposed to be a fair fight.
Exactly. To game it, you engage in something called overfitting. Imagine giving a student the exact answers to the final exam the night before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they'll score 100% the next day, but they haven't actually learned the subject, right? They've just memorized the test.
Right. They just know the trick.
Meta essentially tuned Llama 4 specifically for the style of questions LM Arena asks, rather than making a fundamentally smarter, more useful AI.
I have to play the skeptic here, though. Because isn't that just how the game is played? I mean, Meta's whole branding around their AI operation has been built on this idea of openness and transparency.
They're the self-proclaimed open source champions, yeah.
Right. Doesn't every tech company try to put their best foot forward on these benchmarks? Like, isn't gaining it a bit of a gray area?
Every company optimizes, sure. But this raises an important question about reputational capital. There is a massive difference between putting your best foot forward and actively submitting a manipulated, unreleased model to a platform that's completely built on community trust.
Ah, I see. It's the trust factor.
Right. When your entire competitive advantage against closed systems like OpenAI or Google relies on being the open, trustworthy, community-aligned alternative, getting caught cutting a corner destroys that narrative.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the ultimate self-sabotage.
Well, exactly. It costs you far more in developer trust than whatever temporary PR bump you got from a high benchmark score.
And while their credibility in the developer community was taking this massive hit, their spending was accelerating into the stratosphere.
Just off the charts.
The sources show that the company massively raised its AI infrastructure spending guidance for 2026. They jumped from projecting roughly 115 to 135 billion, all the way up to 145 billion.
Which is a staggering sum of money.
It really is. And they raised that guidance while Zuckerberg was on earnings calls, unable to clearly articulate what new AI products would actually generate the revenue to pay for it all.
And this is where we see the concept of CapEx fear taking over Wall Street.
CapEx meaning capital expenditure, right?
Yes, the money spent on physical assets. In the AI boom, that means massive clusters of NVIDIA GPUs, the data centers to house them, and the literal energy grids required to cool them all down.
So it's basically an arms race.
It's a very expensive one. Investors are terrified of an arms race where tech giants are just hoarding hardware so their rivals can't have it without actually having the consumer software ready to monetize that hardware.
And we saw the market's reaction play out violently. I mean, after that filing, shares fell 16%.
A huge drop.
And what is crazy to me is that this 16% drop happened even though the company reported strong revenue growth. So I have to ask, is the market finally just calling his bluff on the spending?
The drop is absolutely the market enforcing a reality check. Wall Street is looking at the $80 billion lost on the metaverse. Then they are looking at this new $145 billion projection for AI infrastructure.
And they're doing the math.
They're connecting those two data points and demanding proof of utility. A 16% drop despite strong revenue isn't about current performance, it's about future trust. Investors are saying, your spending is outrunning your proof.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you just look at the scorecard up to this point, it is brutal.
It's a bloodbath.
You have an $80 billion vaporware party, a botched AI launch where you alienated developers by gaming a benchmark, and Wall Street dumping your stock over CapEx fear.
Right.
By all traditional business metrics, this company should be in a death spiral. So how are they still alive, let alone thriving?
Because while they were taking hits on the product side, they managed to win the underlying existential battles that fundamentally bought them time.
Okay.
This brings us to the two major wins that stabilize the entire narrative. Let's look at November 2025.
Right. The FTC antitrust case.
Yep.
A federal judge ruled against the Federal Trade Commission, declining to force the company to spin off Instagram and WhatsApp.
A massive ruling.
Yeah, the judge found that the FTC hadn't proven monopoly power exists today, regardless of how the acquisitions were viewed over a decade ago. Now, the FTC is appealing this, but for now, the empire stays in one piece.
And we really need to understand the legal mechanism of why that is such a colossal victory. Regulatory fights move on a completely different clock than product launches.
How so?
Well, the FTC was essentially trying to unbake a cake. After a decade of integration, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook don't just share a corporate logo.
Right, they're completely tangled up.
Exactly. They share data centers, advertising networks, code bases, and back-end infrastructure. Unwinding them isn't like selling off a subsidiary. It's an operational nightmare.
Oh, I bet.
The judge, looking at the rapidly shifting tech landscape, especially with AI upending search and social discovery, just couldn't find the justification to tear that integrated structure apart today.
So the sheer complexity of their integration was essentially a defense mechanism. It reminds me of a fortress strategy. Like surviving the FTC is like ensuring the walls of your castle, which are Instagram and WhatsApp, hold strong.
I like that analogy.
Right. Because those walls held, they had the safety to actually fix the mess they were making in the courtyard with their R&D department.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, surviving long enough is a competitive advantage that people rarely talk about. Having the sheer financial and legal endurance to litigate an antitrust case for years means your core business remains intact.
And the core business pays the bills.
Exactly. And because it remained intact, they were able to pull off win number 2, pivoting their AI strategy from a hype cycle to actual tangible utility.
And the sources show the numbers backing that up. Fast forward to the first quarter of 2026. Revenue hits $56 billion.
Which is a 33% increase.
That's massive. But the crucial detail is where the engagement was coming from. It wasn't just traditional scrolling. It was MuseSpark. Our sources point out that this model, which came out of their superintelligence lab, drove double-digit growth in AI sessions per user. And, even more critically, weekly business agent conversations grew tenfold to over 10 million.
We need to define what that actually means on the ground. Because MuseSpark isn't just a chatbot you play with for fun.
Right, it's not a toy.
No, the Superintelligence Lab focused on building AI agents that execute real tasks. When we talk about 10 million business agent conversations, we're talking about small businesses using AI to instantly reply to customer queries, handle inventory questions, and generate localized ad creative on the fly.
Wow.
It's automating the friction out of digital commerce.
That is the turning point right there. That is the proof Wall Street was begging for.
Exactly.
It proves that an $80 billion failure with the metaverse doesn't disqualify you from eventually getting the next bet right. You can stumble aggressively, you can completely misread the hardware market, but if you pivot that massive infrastructure toward a software solution people actually need.
Like an AI that helps a local bakery sell more pastries.
Exactly. Then the revenue follows.
And the pivot was successful because it shifted from speculative world building to practical utility. But to really understand this dynamic, we need to zoom out and look at this through a scientist's lens.
Okay, what do you mean?
Because when you look closely at this timeline, it is not a story of random luck. It's not a CEO just wildly throwing darts at a board until one hits. It is a highly deliberate organizational design.
So what does this all mean? Are you saying that he isn't actually immune to failure, but rather he structures the entire company so that failure is just an expected data point?
That is the core insight. The company is run less like a traditional business executing a single fragile hypothesis and much more like a massive portfolio of parallel experiments.
Oh, I see.
You have virtual reality over here, AI agents over there, open source large language models, and core advertising optimization all running simultaneously.
And most of them probably fail.
Most of those individual experiments fail, yes, and they fail expensively. But in this design, that is expected. Knowledge and innovation at this scale require multiple parallel attempts.
But parallel attempts are incredibly expensive. You can't just run an $80 billion experiment and a $145 billion experiment simultaneously without, like, an infinite money glitch.
Right, and that is where the concept of structural resilience comes in. None of those experiments work without the core advertising engine.
The cash cow.
Yes, the high-margin automated digital ad business on Facebook and Instagram is the cash cow. It is an engine that is so uniquely profitable, it functionally acts as an infinite funding source.
Wow.
It allows the CEO to behave not like a traditional corporate manager, but like an eccentric venture capitalist operating entirely inside his own public company.
The core engine pays for the chaos. Yeah. That's a fascinating takeaway.
It really is.
If you're listening right now and wondering how to apply the mechanics of a tech giant to your own career or your own small business, this is it. Build the core engine first. You shouldn't view your career as a single fragile path where one bad project ruins you. You need to view it as a portfolio of bets.
Yes, a portfolio of parallel experiments.
Right. But to make those bets, you need one strong core engine, whether that's your primary skill, your main income source, or your foundational client base. It just has to be reliable enough to fund your risk-taking in other areas. Keep your portfolio funded long enough for the next experiment to have a shot.
It's the ultimate lesson in endurance. You can afford to throw the expensive parties that no one attends as long as you own the toll road everyone has to drive on to get to work.
Let's quickly recap this wild journey because the whiplash is real.
It's been a ride.
We started with the $80 billion Metaverse miss, where they completely misread the network effects of virtual reality. We saw the rushed AI pivot in 2025, culminating in that Llama 4 benchmark stumble, just a painful, unforced error where gaming the system cost them developer trust.
Yeah.
We looked at the CapEx sphere, driven by a runaway $145 billion spending guidance that terrified investors.
With the 16% stock drop.
Right. But balanced against all of that,
Yeah.
we saw the underlying structural resilience.
Yeah.
They survived the FTC's attempt to unbake their corporate cake, and they leveraged that stability to build a $56 billion Q1 revenue engine in 2026, driven by actual tangible AI utility with MuSpark and millions of business agents.
It's a masterclass in portfolio theory and really just surviving your own worst impulses. But our sources leave us with one very provocative thought to chew on regarding the future.
Oh, lay it on us.
Okay, so we established that the core advertising engine, those social media feeds full of highly targeted scrollable ads, is the only thing providing the structural resilience to keep this massive portfolio of multi-billion-dollar experiments afloat.
Right, it pays for everything.
But the stated goal of their new pivot is AI superintelligence. And what does superintelligence do? It gives users direct, immediate answers to their queries. It executes tasks directly. It fundamentally removes the need to scroll through endless feeds looking for information. So what happens to the entire corporate structure if this new AI bet is so successful that it actually disrupts and destroys the traditional digital ad model that funds it?
Wow. They literally use the casino's profits to build the ultimate machine. But the machine's only function is to tear down the casino.
Exactly.
It is the ultimate paradox of innovation. You survive the regulators, you survive your own bad bets, only to invent the thing that makes your core engine obsolete. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this shortcut gave you the mechanics behind the headlines. Keep questioning the information around you, and we'll catch you on the next one.